Hello. At the start I want to remind that written version of the guide will be posted in the video description, like always. However, it won't be as detailed as the video one, because of the limited space. If you struggle to replicate the build just from the written guide, please watch the video. I've explained the build in more details. Today I will show you my new build for Spellblade that you can use in Titan Hunt. I know that I made build for Ice Vortex not long ago, for the Necromancer. However, this version is made around skill chains instead chaotic, so it's a little different. 3 other builds that I planned for the Spellblade ended up weaker than I expected, so I had to go with the good old reliable. This build focuses on late game damage, so I recommend using it in the based Titan Hunt level, maybe Sigil +1. Anything above that makes enemies unnecessarily tanky without giving us anything as extra reward, because higher sigils don't increase amount of materials gained. Naturally, we run last sigil to have access to Void King and its powers, and get all possible types of materials. While we don't use any weapon specific skill in this build, this means we technically have free choice which weapon to pick. I decided to pick third weapon, which not only gives us access to slow passives from the start, but it also gives decent amount of extra cast frequency if you have it upgraded to higher level. Other options might be good as well, but avoid picking fourth weapon, it will add useless burn passives. When it comes to runes, since I mostly make those builds as material farmers, I reserve 2 spots for material runes, those being material harvest and efficient extraction. Material harvest being better for regular materials, and efficient extraction being better for void essences, aka the boss parts. If you care about prestige levels, you can take Ardus Training over one of the material runes. And third minor rune we take is Endless Refill, which provides us with extra rerolls and locks every cycle. If you don't care about materials or prestige levels, and you are doing regular run, you can take Reroll Mastery to have even more rerolls, which will result in slightly more damage, and Unconventional Start as a third option to start with Ice Vortex from level 1, instead needing to wait until you actually find it. With major runes there isn't much flexibility available to us. The 3 runes I used in this build are the best options you can take, and changing them would only result in worse outcome. Those 3 runes being Singular Focus, Divine Legacy and Multicast Mastery. Singular Focus is required to take our skill chains trigger on guard multiple times. This rune is pretty much mandatory, because while without it you could take 3 other thrust skills for skill chains, you won't find 4 good skills that have both thrust and area attack, which we will need in this build. Divine Legacy allows us to force spawn legendary passives every 30 levels, which we use to take both skill chains and damage to magical skills. This rune definitely makes the build way stronger, because without it you won't find skill chains passives that often. And the last rune we take is Multicast Mastery. While this rune was slightly nerfed in last patch, it still double dips for stack skills, resulting in highest DPS boost we can get from blue rune. Since we banish pretty much every legendary passive that we won't be taking, leaving only 3 we want, keeping rerolls for Divine Legacy procs is not needed. We won't be rerolling legendary options at all, at least once we banish all useless options and we get all of the proper skills. For the skills, like I already mentioned, we utilize Singular Focus rune to be able to pick same skill multiple times. Our first skill we take is On Guard. Like I already mentioned, we utilize single focus to pick this skill 4 times in total. On Guard has relatively low cooldown, which is good for skill chains. On top of that, it provides enough form and bulwark to reach around 2000 stacks of each, which gives us around 900 crit chance. We don't really care about block from bulwark. And applying Exposed on top of that, saving us a lot of Titan passive points, because while Exposed only takes 1 passive point, reaching soft cap of form usually requires 4 or even 5 points. Next skill we take is Arcane Rift, which will be our main slow stack generator. It's hard to say how many times in total it hits, however, because as we move we spawn multiple overlapping areas and each of them can hit multiple times. Safe to assume it's more than 20 hits per cast, probably way more, making it one of the best stack generator in the game, at least once we get decent amount of area effect for overlap. On top of that, it also provides Fragility, once again saving us 1 Titan passive point. And our last skill is Ice Vortex, which is our main damage dealer. It is stack skill, which means it gets extra damage for each stack on a target, in this case slow stacks. This is one of the reasons why we want to have slow stack generator in our build. While technically this skill applies some slow stacks on the target before exploding and dealing damage, it's definitely not as much as we can get with proper generator. Since we also use Divine Legacy rune, early on the strategy is to take only thrust skills, using rerolls if there are none available, and take any arcane skill. We don't need to take ice skill because we start with 1. Before level 30 we want to have 4 thrust skills, 1 arcane skill and 1 ice skill, so we have access to both skill chains we rely on, and we don't have much clutter of the legendary passives. If you didn't find Ice Vortex before level 30, you will technically have 5 thrust skills in total, because Arctic Assault counts as ice and thrust. Of course, if you already picked random arcane skill and then find Arcane Rift, take it, even if it means having 2 arcane skills for some time. And same with the Ice Vortex, if you find Ice Vortex before having all 6 skills, take Ice Vortex and have 2 ice skills for some time. When it comes to skill passives, let's talk about each skill separately. On Guard is our skill chain trigger, so only thing we care about is reducing its cooldown. This means attack speed passives for it take priority. Damage for it is completely useless, so we ignore it. And multicast passives are for the skill are banished to remove it from legendary passive pool. Arcane Rift is our slow stack generator, however we actually don't care about any passive for it. Damage for it is completely useless, so we ignore it. Since we trigger this skill from skill chains very often, and we get a lot of cast frequency in general, attack speed passives for it would barely make a difference, so we ignore it because it would be a waste of points. And multicast passive for it are banished, since skills triggered by skill chains cannot multicast, and we also got plenty of multicast from Finesse. And for the Ice Vortex, it is our main damage dealer, so naturally we care about damage for it. And those are actually only passives we care about. Area of effect for it is technically good, but we get so much of it from Colossal that once again it would barely make any difference and be waste of points, so we ignore it. And multicast, like with other 2 skills, is banished. There is also a few group passives we want to take to make this skill stronger. Obviously all group passives that work on it and give us damage, meaning damage to magical skills, damage to area skills, damage to lasting skills, and damage to non-trust skills. And on top of that, we also want to take crit chance to non-trust skills, ignore group passives that give area effect and multicast. For general offensive stats, passives, naturally our top priority is cast frequency, to lower cooldown of on guard to lowest possible. You won't be able to reach 0.15 second cooldown on it, which is cap, so there won't be point at which it stops being our priority. After that, the order of other stats doesn't really matter that much, because you get so many of each of the stat from other sources. But here is the order I was following. Our next priority is critical chance, then critical damage, and regular damage at the end. Area effect is ignored, because Colossal makes it kinda useless, and multicast is banished. For the same reason we banish multicast to each of the skills. For defensive stats, we take movement speed until around 150 to 200% extra. We don't need much, as much as in other builds, because we will get a lot of extra from haste. When it goes to HP, it depends on your gameplay style. Personally, I almost never get hit, so I try to dodge everything, and if I do, it's usually Perrin, where I would get one shot even with a lot of HP. So I only take HP when there is nothing better available. This gives me enough to not die from random ground damage I fail to avoid. If you prefer to have more HP, feel free to take it more often. And armor and block are completely ignored, because later on enemies penetrate 90% of our defense, and we also get around 900 block from Bulwark. Since Magnet or the extra XP passives don't work on the XP we get in the past, the earlier we take them, the stronger they are, which means we want to prioritize them early on. Take any level of extra XP until you reach 100% extra. After that, take only green or blue tier until you reach 200 extra. And after reaching 200 extra, stop prioritizing XP and take only blue tier when it appears, ignoring white and green. Like I already mentioned earlier, skill chains are one of the most important things in this build, and that's also why we use Divine Legacy rune to force spawn them every 30 levels. We take two types of them, Trust to Ice and Trust to Arcane. Obviously you want to take both of them every time you see them, but since we have almost 400 skill chains from, actually over 400% skill chains from Area to Ice in addition to Trust to Ice, this makes Arcane chains more important because we have less chance of it. When it comes to negative effects, this build doesn't focus on them that much. Obviously our top priority is slow, so we want to take slow on hit and slow on crit as many times as possible, because each level makes us apply more stacks at once. Other than that, we'll have access to Disarray once we take slow to Disarray synergy. We don't take Disarray on hit at all, just the synergy is enough to reach hard cap of 200 stacks. For the synergies, this time we actually have a lot of them available, but mostly for positive effects. Like mentioned earlier, we take slow to Disarray synergy once, we ignore it after. On top of that, we want to take each positive effect synergy at least once. You can take them more times if they appear when there is nothing better available. And those synergies being Form to Haste synergy, Bulwark to Aptitude synergy, Aptitude to Prowess synergy, and Prowess to Resilience synergy. Personally, I didn't get the Prowess to Resilience synergy because you unlock it quite late, but if you won't find it, it's not big deal. Same for the Aptitude to Prowess, I got it very late, but it's not that important, but if you find it, it's good to take it. Spellblade Ascension is actually the strongest one in the game, but it is also very annoying to use. Personally, I decided to not bother and disable it completely, and even without it, build is very strong. You can disable it at the start before in the starting menu before you start the run. However, if you want to bother using Ascension, properly, you can probably add 2, maybe 3 more Titan skilled. You can take white tier passives to charge it faster, and if I recall correctly, blue tier that gives more damage because it works like potency for buff skills, increasing the effect from Ascension, not just the damage that the meteors and other stuff does. I am not sure whether it is blue tier or green tier because it was very long ago that I used this Ascension. I usually disable it, but you will see which one gives the damage. Okay, I already briefly mentioned that we banish pretty much every useless legendary option to always have Divine Legacy over us what we want without needing to spend rerolls. Unfortunately, this build uses both physical and magical skills, adding more useless passives. Here is full list of what we want to banish. First of all, we want to banish multicast to all of the skills, so multicast to On Guard, multicast to Arcane Rift, and multicast to Ice Vortex. On top of that, we want to banish remaining sources of multicast, which also have legendary passives, so regular multicast, and the multicast to non-trust skills, but also multicast to physical skills and a multicast to magical skills. And like already mentioned, more area effect is pretty much useless for us, so we also banish area effect to physical skills and area effect to magical skills. And for the last banished passive, we take damage to physical skills, since Ice Vortex is magical. This leaves us with only 3 legendary passives: Trust to Ice skill chains, Trust to Arcane skill chains, and damage to magical skills, which obviously we'd want to take every time. Okay. So now that we know how the build works, what to take, what to ignore, and so on, time for another very important aspect, which are Titans and their passives. Order of them is quite important. You can change it, just remember you can't do same Titan twice in a row, so if you want to swap some of them, keep that in mind. And passives we take from them is even more important, so I recommend leaving at least 5, maybe even 10 rerolls, 5 to 10 rerolls for each Titan to make sure we get the passive we are looking for, and we can roll for specific Titan as our next cycle. The first Titan we go to are the Kobold Twins, Vivold and Valkaga, from which we take Slow to Brittle Synergy. Brittle effect of extra damage won't do anything to our build, however we will need Brittle for other power. Second Titan is Midoric the Beetle, from which we take Brittle to Colossal Synergy. This is why we needed Brittle. This synergy allows us to generate enough area effect from the Colossal to not worry about area effect from any other source. Also hit everything on the screen with Ice Vortex and easily overlap the areas from Arcane Rift without needing to hack the boss, because normally it has very low area. Third Titan we go for is Mezahead the Scorpion, from which we take power that allows us to spawn Sandstorms from Colossal stacks. This not only provides us with Dazed, which is another 200 extra crit chance, it also adds extra hits that can apply slow thanks to passives. Fourth Titan we go for is Brokant and the Lizard, from which we take Shattered on hit power. Shattered reduces armor of enemies by fixed amount. For Titan Hunt 200 stacks is hard cap, so minus 200 armor on enemies. This means the more armor enemies get from each cycle, the weaker it gets, However, later on we use it for another Titan power, so it's always useful. After beating 4th Titan, we go to the Void King realm. From Void Hunter, the mini-boss before the King, we take 100%, 120% cast frequency passive, as it will reduce cooldown of the Unguard significantly. And from the Void King himself, we take chance to apply Wound on crit. Wound is unique negative effect, which gives us 50% chance to apply double stacks of any other negative effect on the target, including soul stacks, which are main focus on our build, resulting in 50% more DPS on average. After beating the King, our next Titan on the list is Auronak, the Spider, from which we take Disarray to Disoriented Synergy. Disoriented gives us 1% extra crit damage per stack, so that's 3 times more crit damage for us. 7th Titan on the list is Phidom, the Ogre, from which we take chance to gain Finesse every time we multicast. While skills triggered by skill chains won't multicast, this makes 4 copies of On Guard generate way more forms stacks, meaning more crit chance for us, and more haste from movement speed. And I guess more bulwark, but we don't really care about block power. 8th Titan we will be fighting is Midorek the Beetle again, and this time we want to take chance to gain aptitude each time we crit. With amount of hits this build has, in late game we can easily reach around 2000 or even more stacks of aptitude, meaning around 1800, maybe out of 2000 extra crit damage, giving us huge boost to overall DPS. 9th Titan we on the list are Vivold and Vakagagan, from which we want to take Shattered to Prowess Synergy. This is the reason why Shattered is still useful even later in the game. Similar to Aptitude, later on we are able to reach over 2000 stacks of Prowess, giving us around 900 to 1000% extra damage. Keep in mind that stats from buffs are, or from the positive effects are added to our stats, while stats from negative effects are multipliers. And at this point we got all key elements of the build, and from now on we focus on only one thing, proccing Ice Vortex even more times. We can do it with 2 things, and we will be using both of them. First of all, we can reduce cooldown of On Guard further by getting more cast frequency. So lower cooldown on guard means we cast it more often, so we proc skill chains more often, which we will be doing by visiting Beetle and taking its cast frequency passive. And another option is even more skill chains, because On Guard is not only thrust skill, it also has area attack. We can use area to ice skill chains, available from the Ice Giant Hector. Those 2 titans will be what we are running all the way to the end. So first one, then another, and we will be weaving them, since you can't go for the same titan twice in a row. So the 10th titan will be Midorek the Beetle, and we take cast frequency and crit damage passive from it. Like already mentioned, this will reduce cooldown of On Guard further, making us trigger skill chains more often. We also take this passive from 12th Titan, 14th Titan, 16th Titan, 18th Titan and 20th Titan, taking it 5 times in total. And for the 11th Titan we pick Hector the Ice Giant, from which we take area to ice skill chains. Since On Guard has area attack, every time we cast On Guard we have chance to trigger Ice Vortex, on top of what we already have from thrust to ice skill chains. We also take this passive from 13th Titan, 15th Titan, 17th Titan, 19th Titan and 21st Titan, taking it 6 times in total. For the 22nd Titan, if you are not using Ascension, pick Spider as it is easy to kill. Leave after killing it. After this point, Titans start to take too long to kill to be worth farming further. And if you didn't disable Ascension and know how to use it properly, you probably can go for 2 or 3 more Titans. So for the 22nd, pick Beetle, then Hector for the 23rd, and pick Spider as 24th instead. Alright, so that's all information related to the build. Hopefully I explained it well enough that you are able to follow it. If you don't understand something about the build or have trouble with specific part for it or of it, let me know in the comments. I will try to help you. It's totally possible that I forgot about something, thinking that it's obvious, not realizing that for new player it in fact might not be that obvious. I try to talk about everything in my guides, but there is a lot of things in those builds, so it's easy to forget about some less important elements. You can also watch the full run of the build in the video I posted yesterday. I'll put link to it in the video description as well. So I hope that this build will help you with farming, or maybe you'll learn something that will help you in creating your own builds. Thank you for watching, I will see you in the next one. Have a good day, bye bye.